60 to 80 years old. These 8 signs of mini-strokes you must know. It could save your life. Honestly, I don't want you to ever experience what I'm about to talk about, but this is incredibly urgent for older adults, especially those between 60 and 80 years old. Doctors tell us that as we age, our blood vessels stiffen, our arterial walls lose elasticity, and our body's ability to clear tiny clots becomes weaker. In younger people, the brain's robust vascular system can usually compensate for brief disruptions in blood flow, but in older adults, even a momentary blockage can trigger what doctors call a transient ischemic attack, or mini-stroke. According to data from the CDC and the American Heart Association, adults over 65 are far more likely to experience these warning attacks, sometimes as much as 3 to 5 times the risk of someone in their 40s, because of age-related changes in blood pressure regulation, cholesterol buildup, and weaker cerebral circulation. These micro-disruptions matter because they are not random, they are your brain sending a distress signal, and that's why it's absolutely critical to know the 8 key signs of mini-strokes as soon as they happen. Ignoring them can mean missing your only chance to prevent a major stroke that could cost you mobility, speech, independence, or your life. I'm not here to ask you to like or subscribe, I just want you to watch this video all the way through so you get every piece of value it offers. Now, let's dive into the very first sign. 1. Sudden weakness on one side. It surprises many older Americans to learn that brief one-sided weakness is so specific to mini-strokes that neurologists at the National Institute of Neurological Disorders and Stroke call it a directional failure, because the brain literally stops sending commands to just one half of your body. It can last anywhere from 10 seconds to 2 minutes, and what makes it stand out is how suddenly it appears. There's no warm-up, no soreness, no gradual fatigue like you'd expect from aging muscles. One moment you're reaching for a remote, and the next your arm simply refuses to obey. That happens because a small clot blocks a branch vessel feeding the motor strip. And when the blood flow flickers back, strength returns just as abruptly. Older adults often brush this off, but your muscles don't randomly collapse on a schedule, they follow the brain, and the brain never misfires for fun. What helps in the real world is keeping track of asymmetry. If one side consistently feels slower, try a simple at-home test Americans rarely use. Stand near a counter and raise both arms forward for about 6 seconds. If one arm dips even slightly, it's worth calling your doctor the same day. And even more practical is avoiding long periods of sitting, because staying in one position for more than 70 to 80 minutes can encourage small clots to form in the legs and eventually travel upward. So, before moving on, let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed how a sudden blur of sound in your own voice feels strangely similar to the way a shaky reflection looks in a fogged mirror? 2. Slurred or confused speech. What catches people off guard about slurred or scrambled speech is how selectively it strikes. According to neurologists at the American Stroke Association, the speech centers in the brain are so sensitive that even a tiny interruption in blood flow can distort language without affecting anything else. You can walk fine, see fine, even think clearly, yet the words slide out twisted. Many older adults chalk this up to dry mouth or talking too fast, but mini-stroke speech trouble has a telltale pattern. It appears instantly, lasts under a minute, and feels like you're trapped between the word you want to say and the one your mouth insists on forming. The reason is simple: when circulation dips, your brain prioritizes survival functions, not articulation. A surprisingly effective way to catch this early, used quietly by some speech therapists, is reading one short paragraph out loud each morning. If you hear even the slightest muddling of consonants, that's a red flag worth acting on immediately. And because dehydration thickens the blood and makes brief clots more likely, one small yet powerful habit is sipping around half a cup of water every hour or so instead of drinking large amounts all at once, which many Americans over 60 already struggle with. This steadier hydration pattern helps the brain maintain a more stable blood flow throughout the day. Now, as we shift from sound to sight, have you ever experienced a moment when light suddenly feels distorted, almost like looking through a smudged piece of glass? 3. Sudden vision changes. Few people realize that the eye is technically an extension of the brain, which is why sudden vision changes, darkening in one eye, a momentary blur, or double vision, are among the most revealing mini-stroke warnings. The National Institutes of Health once highlighted a curious fact: the retinal artery is so thin that even a microscopic clot can shut down vision faster than you can blink. These episodes often last less than 30 seconds, and what differentiates them from normal aging vision is their abruptness. They don't fade in, they slam in. During a TIA, the vessel behind the eye temporarily loses pressure, causing vision to warp like a camera lens losing power. But there's something older Americans can do that many never try: tracking visual asymmetry by covering one eye for a few seconds each morning and checking if colors or brightness look slightly different. If one side appears darker or less crisp, that's meaningful. Another practical adjustment involves adding short eye breaks every 45 minutes, especially for seniors who read, watch TV, or scroll on tablets for long stretches. These tiny breaks reduce strain on the vessels feeding the optic nerve and help stabilize blood flow. And if your eyes ever feel unusually heavy after standing up quickly, that can signal pressure fluctuations worth mentioning to your doctor. Now, since vision and balance share some of the same neural pathways, let me ask you, have you noticed how a subtle tilt in your posture can feel almost like stepping onto a soft, uneven surface? 4. Loss of balance or coordination. Loss of balance during a mini-stroke isn't the wobble of weak knees, it's the brain's coordination center momentarily going offline, which is why it often feels like the ground shifts beneath you instead of your legs failing. According to specialists cited by the American Heart Association, the cerebellum reacts faster to blood flow changes than almost any other region, making balance issues one of the earliest neurological alarms in adults over 60. What makes this particularly concerning is how briefly it can appear, sometimes just a single misstep, a sudden tilt to one side, or an unexplained stumble even when walking slowly on a flat surface. That happens because the clot steals oxygen from the part of the brain that controls fine-tuned movements, and when blood returns, coordination snaps back instantly, creating the illusion that nothing serious happened. A useful real-life strategy is checking your dual-task stability, something physical therapists often use with seniors. Walk 10 steps while quietly counting backward from a number like 40. If your body sways more than usual or the counting feels disproportionately difficult, that can reveal early coordination problems tied to blood flow. Another simple habit is spending roughly 90 seconds each morning standing near a counter and gently shifting your weight from heel to toe. It strengthens the stabilizing muscles older Americans tend to neglect and improves blood circulation to the lower brain regions. And as we move from balance to the deeper internal sensations your body uses to warn you, have you ever felt a sudden internal pressure that hits with the harsh, sharp clarity of something bright and piercing? 5. Severe sudden headache. Older Americans are often surprised to learn that the kind of headache linked to a mini-stroke doesn't behave like the familiar aches from tension or dehydration. Neurologists at the NIH have documented cases in people over 65 describing this pain as a bright electric snap deep inside the skull, usually starting near the back of the head and shooting forward like a malfunctioning signal. What makes it so different is the speed. It doesn't build, it detonates. It often appears in under 3 seconds, a flash of pain that forces you to pause, breathe, and wonder what just happened. That's because when a tiny clot interrupts blood flow in a posterior brain artery, internal pressure shifts abruptly, and the pain system reacts with a sharp, piercing burst. And yes, it often fades quickly. But that quick disappearance is exactly what gives away a TIA. The blood flow snaps back, and the pain shuts off almost unnaturally fast. One little-known habit that can help reduce these sudden pressure shifts is avoiding fast head turns right after waking. The brain circulation is highly sensitive at that moment, and jerking your head too quickly can cause a brief drop in blood pressure inside the skull, giving a clot just enough opportunity to lodge for a moment. Another practical trick is keeping the bedroom slightly cool, around 67 degrees Fahrenheit, since a cooler environment helps stabilize nighttime blood vessel tone. And when that sharp flash of pain vanishes as suddenly as it arrived, have you ever noticed how your body sinks into a strange, heavy quiet, almost like a soft fog pressing down on your chest? 6. Sudden fatigue, easily confused. What makes sudden fatigue during a mini-stroke so dangerous is how it strikes in moments of stillness, when you haven't done anything remotely strenuous. The CDC has described this phenomenon as an energy dropout, where a brief reduction in blood flow forces the brain to shut down non-essential functions to protect its core. That's why the sensation feels so different from age-related tiredness. It arrives fast, deep, and heavy, as if someone flipped a switch and drained the power from your muscles and thoughts at the same time. The reason this happens is that even a tiny disruption in circulation forces the nervous system to redirect oxygen to critical zones, leaving you feeling hollowed out. A practical and underused strategy for older Americans is organizing your day into 80-90-minute activity blocks with tiny micro breaks in between, just 3 or 4 minutes of standing tall, stretching your back, or walking slowly around the house helps stabilize brain oxygenation and prevents these abrupt crashes. Another real-world adjustment is eating a soft protein anchor snack like a spoonful of Greek yogurt or cottage cheese mid-morning or mid-afternoon to keep your blood sugar consistent, since sudden dips can intensify the brain's response to brief oxygen drops. And every time this curtain of exhaustion falls over you out of nowhere, have you noticed how your mind suddenly feels thin, scattered, almost flickering like points of light that refuse to stay still? 7. Brief confusion episodes. These short bursts of confusion, standing in the middle of a room unsure why you went there, losing a thought mid-action, or feeling your mind go blank for 20 or 30 seconds, often get mistaken for normal aging. But findings from the NNDS show that during a TIA, the pathways connecting intention and focus can lose blood supply so suddenly that the brain temporarily disconnects thought from action. What sets this apart from ordinary forgetfulness is the peculiar emptiness that fills your head, almost like a mental blackout that resolves too quickly to feel like memory loss. When blood flow stutters, the brain safeguards basic awareness but trims away the ability to coordinate tasks, creating a moment that feels both familiar and frightening. A surprisingly useful technique, something cognitive therapists occasionally teach but rarely advertise, is placing a brightly colored object, like a red coaster or wristband, in fixed spots around the home. When an episode hits, you look at the object and immediately name 3 things: the day of the week, where you're standing, and what you were about to do. It takes 20 to 30 seconds and gives you a real-time window into how stable your cognition is. If this small grounding exercise feels unusually difficult, that's a sign worth paying attention to. And from those brief mental shadows, have you ever noticed your skin suddenly buzzing or sparkling with a cold, needle-fine sensation that comes and goes without reason? 8. Numbness or tingling that comes and goes. Numbness or tingling that appears suddenly, especially on one side of the face or in specific fingers or lips, is one of the most precise mapped clues of a mini-stroke. Each patch of skin connects to a dedicated cluster of sensory neurons, so when blood flow is briefly interrupted in the area of the brain that processes sensation, the reaction shows up in a sharply defined spot, not the widespread numbness you get from sleeping in a bad position. NNDS reports many older adults describing the feeling like tiny air bubbles snapping under the skin, lasting seconds before vanishing. When circulation returns, the nerves reboot, which is why the sensation disappears so quickly. A surprisingly effective way to distinguish this from ordinary pressure numbness is gently rubbing the affected area in slow circles for about 15 to 20 seconds. If the tingling does not change, or spreads a little, that strongly suggests a central nervous origin rather than a muscle or skin issue. Another overlooked habit that helps older Americans is keeping the wrists, elbows, and neck warm at night. These regions contain vessels that influence blood flow to sensory pathways, and warmth helps prevent constriction that makes these brief episodes more likely. And when that strange, cold spark fades off your skin like a thin blade of icy air, have you ever wondered why it leaves behind a sensation so sharp it feels like a metallic warning brushing across the nerves? First, if this video brought you value, please subscribe, like, and especially share it with someone you care about. Sharing could literally help another family recognize a warning sign in time. And if there's any health topic you want me to cover next, just leave a comment. I always read them. To sum up, overlooking these subtle signals is far more dangerous than most people realize. Mini-strokes rarely happen just once. They are your brain's final warning before a catastrophic event that can steal your memory, your mobility, and your independence in seconds. Ignoring them doesn't make them disappear, it only guarantees that the next episode could be the one that changes your life forever. Before we continue with the next part of this series, let me leave you with a question: do you truly know what your body is trying to warn you about? While waiting for the upcoming video, make sure to watch the one on your screen, it will give you even more tools to protect your health and future.